Everyone knows the poster child of prehistoric terror: a shadow in the water, a 6-inch shark tooth in the sand. The Megalodon is legendary. But here's the part the ocean documentaries usually skip. 10 to 12 million years ago, if you were a whale cruising the warm coastal seas off what's now Peru, Megalodon wasn't your only problem. You also had to worry about a whale that hunted other whales. Imagine you're an 8-meter baleen whale surfacing to breathe. The water is calm. A few sharks circle far below. And then something rises under you that isn't a shark at all. First, you see a blunt wall of bone, a 3-meter skull, almost 2 meters wide. Then the jaws open, and instead of soft gums and tiny teeth like a modern sperm whale, you're staring into rows of foot-long, enamel-coated daggers in both jaws. These teeth are the largest true biting teeth of any animal we've ever found, bigger than Tyrannosaurus rex teeth, and they belong to a sperm whale named for a sea monster and for the man who wrote Moby Dick, Livyatan and Megalodon. For a few million years, this thing shared the ocean with Megalodon, hunted the same prey, and sat at the very top of Miocene food webs. Megalodon got the spotlight. Livyatan got buried in a Peruvian desert. Tonight, we're going to drag it back to the surface. So let's talk about the ocean's worst co-workers. On one side, Origins Megalodon, a gigantic shark whose teeth were the size of your hand and built like serrated steak knives, broad, triangular, perfect for slicing through bone and blubber. On the other, Livyatan and Megalodon, a macro-raptorial sperm whale, roughly 13.5 to 17.5 meters long, in the same size class as big modern sperm whales. Instead of a long, narrow snout and tiny lower teeth used for catching squid, Livyatan had a short, wide skull and massive, deeply rooted teeth lining both jaws. Where Megalodon specialized in sawing bites out of its prey, Livyatan's skull and jaws were built for gripping and tearing, more like a scaled-up killer whale. Both predators were after the same menu: medium-sized baleen whales rich in fat, plus dolphins, seals, and other marine mammals. Fossil formations like the Pisco Formation in Peru and the Bahia Inglesa Formation in Chile preserve exactly that combination. Lots of whale bones, lots of large shark teeth, including Megalodon, and, in a few lucky cases, the enormous teeth and skull of Livyatan. We don't have a fossilized Megalodon vertebra with Livyatan bite marks or a Livyatan jaw with shark scars, so we can't point to a specific monster versus monster showdown. But we do know they were patrolling the same productive coastal waters at roughly the same time, both sitting at the top of the food chain. If you were a Miocene whale, this was not a good era to be made of meat. The discovery of Livyatan didn't start in the ocean. It started in a desert. In November 2008, a research team was working in the coastal desert of southern Peru, in strata of the Pisco Formation. Ancient seafloor sediments, now tilted up and exposed to sun and wind. This area is famous for its fossil whales, dolphins, seals, and sharks. But for years, paleontologists only had scattered clues that a giant, predatory sperm whale might be hiding there. Oversized teeth, found as far back as the 19th century, that looked like sperm whale teeth, but were far too big to match any known species. When the team formally described the fossil in 2010, they gave it one of the most metal names imaginable: Livyatan and Megalodon. Livyatan comes from the English spelling of the biblical sea monster, and Megalodon honors Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick, who often referred to whales as Leviathans in his book. It was a perfect nod to both mythology and literature, a real-life sea monster named for the most famous fictional sperm whale of all time. There was just one small problem. In zoological naming, you don't get to reuse genus names that are already attached to other animals. And Livyatan had already been used in the 19th century for a mastodon, an extinct relative of elephants, and treated as a synonym of mammoth. The rules of the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature are very clear about this. No duplicate genus names, or you end up with confusing situations where completely unrelated animals share the same label. So the authors had to fix it. A month after the original paper, they published a correction. The new genus name was Livyatan, taken from the original Hebrew spelling of Leviathan. The species name Melville stayed the same. So the full name became Livyatan Melville. Still a tribute to the biblical monster, still a tribute to Melville, but now technically correct. The whale itself didn't change, just the letters we use to talk about a predator that in life never cared what we called it. So, what exactly was Livyatan? Taxonomically, it belongs to an extinct group of sperm whales, often called macroraptorial or raptorial sperm whales, large-toothed whales with functional, enamel-coated teeth in both jaws and skulls, adapted for seizing and tearing big prey. Modern sperm whales, Physeter macrocephalus, are part of the family Physeteridae, and they have a very different lifestyle. They're deep-diving suction feeders that mostly eat squid, with toothless upper jaws and relatively small lower teeth that aren't used to process food. Livyatan represents a much more aggressive strategy. Its estimated total body length falls between about 13.5 and 17.5 meters, depending on which comparison you use, roughly the size of a large modern sperm whale. One estimate puts a 17.5-meter Livyatan at around 57 metric tons. But unlike Physeter, Livyatan had a shorter, wider snout, a massive jaw musculature, and a lower tooth count with fewer, larger teeth. We can't follow Livyatan around with a camera, but its anatomy gives us a pretty good idea of how it likely hunted. Modern sperm whales are deep divers. They use the spermaceti organ and a complex system of air sacs and fat bodies to produce powerful clicks, locate squid in the dark, and then suck them into their mouths. Their teeth are small tools in that process, not the main weapon. Livyatan flips that script. With its shorter, more heavily built skull, enormous jaw-closing muscles, and massive interlocking teeth, it was almost certainly hunting near the surface in well-lit waters, more like a killer whale than a squid eater. Paleontologists think its main targets were medium-sized baleen whales in the 7 to 10 meter range, along with dolphins, seals, and possibly large fish and sharks. One plausible hunting strategy goes like this. Livyatan cruises through coastal or open waters where these animals are common, using its size and power as an advantage. When it spots a suitable whale, it may use a burst of speed to ram it with that reinforced head, stunning or disorienting it. Then it latches on with the front teeth, which angle forward to grip the prey securely, and uses the rest of the jaw to deliver crushing, tearing bites. Tooth wear patterns show that its teeth sheared against each other, which would have allowed it to rip off large chunks of flesh, similar to how killer whales dismember prey today, just scaled up. Unlike sharks, which need to keep water moving over their gills, Livyatan could surface to breathe between attacks, potentially allowing for longer, more sustained hunts. Whether it operated mainly as a solitary hunter, which seems likely given its huge size, or sometimes in loose groups. Everything we see in the skull and teeth says the same thing. This was a whale designed to turn other whales into food. If you build a predator like Livyatan, you'd better give it something substantial to eat. The fossil record of the Pisco Formation in Peru and similar Miocene formations in Chile and elsewhere shows that Livyatan lived in seas packed with potential prey. Medium-sized baleen whales were particularly abundant. Many belong to groups like cetotheriids, with body lengths around 5 to 8 meters, and other baleen whales in roughly the same size class. These animals fed using baleen plates to filter small organisms from the water, which made them rich in blubber and relatively slow compared to faster, more agile dolphins. In other words, perfect targets. The same deposits also contain fossils of toothed whales, beaked whales, ancient relatives of river dolphins and other sperm whales, plus earless seals, sea turtles, and even marine sloths like Thalassocnus in some regions. Shark teeth from species like broad-toothed makos and megalodon are often found near whale and seal bones, showing that multiple predators were feeding on the same mammal-rich ecosystem. Harriet Goodchild describes Livyatan as having a taste for whale flesh, and its jaws were large enough to swallow big pieces whole, if not entire smaller animals. Its mouth has been estimated at roughly 6 feet long and 4 feet wide, big enough to engulf an adult human with room to spare. Smaller dolphins and seals would have been easy meals. Medium-sized baleen whales required more effort, but would have delivered huge energy payoffs. In this environment, Livyatan didn't need to specialize in one narrow prey type. It could simply target whatever large marine vertebrate it could overpower, with baleen whales likely forming the bulk of its diet. For a few million years, the Livyatan-Megalodon combo dominated marine food webs, but apex predators are only as stable as their food supply. Toward the end of the Miocene and into the early Pliocene, Earth's climate cooled, ice sheets expanded, sea levels shifted, and ocean circulation changed. Those changes didn't just alter water temperature, they reshaped where nutrients were concentrated and where plankton and fish thrived. Baleen whales, which depend on dense patches of small prey, responded in dramatic ways. Some lineages became much larger and adopted long-distance migrations between feeding and breeding grounds. Others, especially smaller coastal species that had once been common in places like the Pisco Seas, declined in diversity or disappeared. Multiple sources suggest that Livyatan's survival was tightly tied to those mid-sized baleen whales. Harriet Goodchild notes that as global cooling toward the end of the Miocene reduced the diversity, distribution, and size of these whales, the primary prey base that Livyatan relied on would have shrunk. At the same time, new predators were rising. The ancestors of modern orcas and large predatory globicephaline dolphins were diversifying, bringing a more flexible approach to hunting, smaller body sizes, social hunting strategies, and diets that could shift among fish, squid, seals, and occasional whales. They weren't locked into a narrow niche of eating 8-meter baleen whales. According to the fossil record, Livyatan-like sperm whales disappear by the early Pliocene, around 5 million years ago, collapsing alongside the smaller whales they fed on. Megalodon hangs on slightly longer, until roughly 3.6 million years ago, before vanishing as well. The most likely explanation is a combination of climate-driven changes to whale populations and competition from more adaptable predators. In short, the ocean that had once supported giant, highly specialized whale killers shifted under their flukes, and they couldn't adapt fast enough. Today, all that's left of Livyatan are bones and teeth in museum drawers and desert cliffs, plus 3 living sperm whale species that tell a very different story. Modern Physeter macrocephalus shares the spermaceti organ and general head architecture with Livyatan, but it uses them to dive deep and hunt squid, not to bite off pieces of other whales. Its upper jaw is toothless. Its lower teeth are small compared to Livyatan's and not used for chewing. Yet the discovery of Livyatan has forced us to rethink what sperm whales, and whales in general, have been capable of. For a time in the Miocene, eos of hoofed land mammals like Indoheus had given rise not just to peaceful filter-feeding giants, but to hyper-carnivorous whale killers with the largest biting teeth ever found. Livyatan shows that the sperm whale blueprint, big head, spermaceti organ, toothed jaws, can be pushed in very different directions depending on what the ocean rewards. It also highlights how much of whale evolution has been shaped by whales eating whales. Raptorial sperm whales like Livyatan evolved alongside a diversification of baleen whales and may have helped to drive the evolution of larger, faster filter feeders. Their extinction opened ecological space that modern orcas and other dolphins later filled in their own, more flexible way. When we look at a sperm whale today or watch an orca hunt, we're seeing the survivors of a long, violent experiment whose more extreme branches, like Livyatan, didn't last. Today's oceans feel dangerous, but they are quiet compared to the Miocene. Once, whales hunted whales, and in those ancient seas, Megalodon was not alone. If stories like this interest you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps keep these deep dives coming. Thank you for watching.